So our Bible reading for the message is taken from Ecclesiastes chapter 3, a time for everything, a well-known one really. There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear down and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. I am going to put the song that we missed in, Paul, because I think it's right and it will prepare us for the message. Okay. The song that I missed, and it was going to be in the winter section, but I think it's still appropriate. It is song "Be Still for the Presence of the Lord." I would suggest we probably sit for this. So my message this morning is really a simple message, and it comes from 1 Peter chapter 3 verses 15. But in your hearts set apart Christ as Lord. Always be prepared to give an answer to everybody who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. This message is going to be a little bit of a testimony as well, because really my idea for this message came a couple of months ago when I was on a team day. And one thing that I've always been told is teach what you know. And that's what I'm going to do. I believe, I'll say that again, I believe that there is a power within Christians that still is able to change the world that we're in. Do you believe that? I saw that power in place. And it's a power that isn't of ourselves. It's a power that was placed there when we knew Christ for the first time. And it's a power that still speaks to people today. It can still change lives today. We don't earn it. It was given us. And that power is hope. Because hope's powerful. And boy, does this world need hope. About, how many months ago? Probably about 3 months ago, I went on a meeting at work, which was a residential meeting, which means it was going to be heavy. So you needed to stay. And it was called Leading as Me, this meeting. And it was a management course of the likes I'd never been on before. Because it wasn't about anything to do with work. It was to do with us as people, what makes us as leaders. And I remember being at Stockport train station saying, Lord, over this weekend, give me an opportunity to share my faith. I was never expecting what happened. There was 3 really important bits to this course. One was a timeline of the important events in your life that we had to share. At this point, we had broken down to a smaller group. And I poured my heart out. I didn't hold back and wasn't willing to hold back from the fact that it is God who has shaped my life, because he has. So I gave him everything. I gave him all my vulnerabilities. I gave him all my fears. I gave him all my hopes. And then other people did the same, because I'd gone first, so they kind of felt comfortable after that. But then something amazing happened. The facilitator who was leading the course suddenly burst into tears. And she says, I wasn't going to do this, and I shouldn't do this, because I'm here for you. But she said she'd been on this course, and about 2 months ago she'd been on the course, and she'd been on the course as somebody who was a delegate, so she had to share her story. And she said to me, I felt guilty on that course, Michael. She said, because people were sharing these incredible stories and nothing had ever happened to me. And she said, she says, a week ago my husband got diagnosed with bowel cancer. And she says, I'm terrified. And I spent 2 days talking to that lady. And what's amazing about hope is that when you've trusted in God and you've put your hope in God and you've gone through the different seasons with God and the promises that he's had are true and have shown to be true, something amazingly powerful happens to you. And it allows you to share your strength with people who don't have strength. And that's what I did. I talked to her about how I'd gone through fear and anxiety, how I'd gone through different emotions. And I pulled some Bible verses together, because these are some of the verses that I shared with different people. And the way it's going to work is I'm going to mention, so for example, the person who has got fear and anxiety, I'm going to talk about the hope that Jesus brings when facing fear and anxiety. And then the person who's got the reading can read it out. So this is the hope that God brings when facing fear and anxiety. It's a promise, I guess. Who's got the fear and anxiety?
From Isaiah 41 and verse 13. For I am the Lord your God, who takes hold of your right hand and says to you, do not fear, I will help you.
Imagine that. God taking hold of your hand. That's something to share with the outside world. And God brings hope to the lost and uncertain. So somebody will have that.
Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future.
And God brings hope and promises to the exhausted and to those whom are worn out.
He does not faint or grow weary. His understanding is unsearchable. He gives power to the faint, and to him who has no might, he increases he increases strength.
And God brings hope to those who are lonely.
Psalm 18:6. In my distress I called upon the Lord and cried out to my God. He heard my voice from his temple, and my cry came before him, even to his ears.
And God brings hope to those who are facing failure, regret and shame.
First letter of John, chapter 1 and verse 9. If we confess our sins, he is faithful and just and will forgive us our sins and purify us from all unrighteousness.
And finally, even in death, even when facing grief, Christ brings hope.
This is from John 11, verse 25 to 26. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live, even though they die. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die. Do you believe this?
Do you believe this? Are they not important messages that our world needs to know? How do we get faith? We put our trust in these. We don't have blind faith. This is proven. These promises have been proven in everybody's life, and the world needs to know this. And the way we do it is, as the verse said, with gentleness and respect. We come alongside people. Lots of things like that happened that day. It was just, it was ridiculous. And I'm going to share a few other things about that day because I think they were powerful. One of the other things that we had to do was we had to get feedback from some close ones about who they saw as a person. And my next door neighbour did one of them, and my best friend, who's now in hospital, he did another one. And then we read them out to each other. It was a bit like, in the bush tucker trail in the jungle where they get the letters from home. It was slightly like that, and it was very emotional, but it was incredible. But there was two things that they mentioned that really touched me. Next door, my next door neighbour said, her feedback was, no matter how tired Michael is when he comes home from work, if I have problems, he will always sit there, stand there over the wall, and he'll always fill me with hope. And we journeyed with my best man. Was it 2 years ago Beryl died? Beryl died, yeah. Okay, so that was Bill's sister. And I always remember, in the very final moments of her life, I said a prayer. And I committed her to God's care. And Bill, who I've spent my life trying to share my faith with said something important to me, and he mentioned this in the letter. What he said to me was, he said, Mike, when somebody prays with such confidence and with such hope, how can you not believe in a God? And they were just amazing moments, because I didn't know what they were going to write. I didn't know the impact that I'd actually had on these people. So this was a shock for me. And then the very final bit was that the group that we'd shared and spent the time with got the opportunity to say who they felt I was as a person. And this was probably the most moving bit for me, because I'd only met these people. And there was two things that were said that just blew me away. I was so humbled by this, but as I thought about it, I understand why. One of them said, Mike, you're like a special person who's been put on the earth. They said, when you speak, people's life gets changed. And I'm just sat there blown away by this, not understanding why they're like that. But I think that's the power of the gospel, because what I believe they were truly seeing that day was Christ working through me. And that actually the special person that they were talking about that day wasn't me. It was Jesus. And the final comment that they made was, Mike, the world needs people like you. And I'm going to put that further. This world needs people like you, like all of us, because we can speak to a world like nobody else can. As we travel through the seasons, and as we travel through the different experiences, people, they need us, because we carry a hope that they don't have. And they're right. Jesus still changes people's lives today. We've just got to share gently, respectfully, not preaching at people. I don't believe in that. Actually, we come alongside people and we preach through our lifestyle, through walking alongside them. And when you do, I believe that people still will feel the hope that you feel, and in you, they will know Jesus. So I simply preached this morning what I know. And what I know is in that meeting, people's lives were changed. I might not ever see the end of that. I might not ever know the result of that, but people's lives were changed, because Christ will always bring hope in darkness. So our autumn is easy, because autumn is about reflection. And on reflection, we are nothing without Christ. What song can you only finish on? In Christ alone. Let's stand.